Hey folks, before we start building anything, we need to talk briefly about this, the tape measure. You guys have all seen a tape measure before, and you've probably opened one up. And when you open it up, you notice it's either made of inches or centimeters. In our wood shop, we're going to do everything in inches. This is called the imperial measurement system, and that's typically what we use in the United States. In the rest of the world, they use centimeters, which frankly is a much easier way to measure things. But because we're using the imperial system in the United States, we're going to focus on using inches in our shop. Really quickly, an inch is just a unit of measurement that we use to measure things. So in our shop, we measure things, we mark them, and then we often cut them. So it's critical that you know how to use a tape measure. And this really all comes down to one thing: just being able to read the lines that are between each inch. So we break an inch typically up into 16ths. So each of these inches is made of 16 little marks. A centimeter is broken up into tenths. So there's 10 marks between each centimeter, and each one of those little marks is called a millimeter. We're not going to do that though in our shop, like I said. What I want to show you guys today is how to read a tape measure by simply memorizing the 15 little marks between each inch. I say 15 because 15 sixteenths takes us right there. 16 sixteenths would be simply 1 inch. So before we get started, I'll tell you a really quick story. When I first started working as a carpenter, I wasn't used to reading a tape measure because I hadn't done it in a while. So my boss made me do this. I actually had to take a match, and I had to hold it in my hand and light it, and I had to be able to name all of the 15 little lines between 1 inch. Once I was able to name those, I could then blow the match out. So the idea was to be able to recite the parts of an inch really quickly. Let's see if I can do it right now. Let's get that match really burning. All right, here we go. 1/16, 1/8, 3/16, 1/4, 5/16, 3/8, 7/16, 1/2, 9/16, 5/8, 11/16, 3/4, 11. Ow! Ow! That was a really fast burning match. Let me try that again. Wasn't quite ready for that one. Also, there's a helicopter flying overhead right now. It might enter into our video. If it does, let's just ignore it. Okay. Here we go. 1/16, 1/8, 3/16, 1/4, 5/16, 3/8, 7/16, 1/2, 9/16, 5/8, 11/16, 3/4, 13/16, 7/8, 15/16. There we go. I'm not going to encourage you to try that at home. But if you want to, I'm not going to say anything. Just make sure you have adult supervision. Okay, so let's talk about those parts of an inch. I want you to be able to recite those parts of an inch. There's that helicopter. I want you to be able to recite the parts of an inch, hopefully by the end of the day today. And I'm going to teach you a trick. So let's start out by looking at our handy-dandy woodshop notebook. And this is what an inch looks like with all its parts. So you have 1 inch. Of course, the big line in the middle is the half because it divides the inch into half. The next two lines are the quarters, then you have the eighths, and then you have the sixteenths. So I've been teaching this for a while, and I've actually learned some tricks, and what I want to do is pass on the trick to you guys right now. So really, to memorize the parts of an inch, I know it looks really confusing, but to memorize it, all you have to do is memorize these three fractions: 1/16, 1/8, 1/4, and 1/2. If you can simply memorize 1/16, 1/8, 1/4, and 1/2, I promise it's actually really easy. So right now, I want you to burn that into your minds. 1/16, 1/8, 1/4, 1/2. 1/16, 1/8, 1/4, 1/2. 1/16, 1/8, 1/4, and 1/2. All you need to remember is that all the little itty-bitty lines, those are all sixteenths. The next size up, those are all eighths. The next size up are the quarters, and then finally the big daddy line in the middle is the half. 1/16, 1/8, 1/4, 1/2. 1/16, 1/8, 1/4, 1/2. I want you to say that over and over again. While you're doing that, I want you to go find a piece of printer paper. Any paper will work, but just a normal sized piece of paper, 8.5 by 11 would be perfect.
I think I better draw a princess too. See, here's my princess. Oh yeah, now we're talking. I'm gonna draw a big heart around her.
Don't forget to do that, that's critical, especially if you have rainbow paper. Okay, what I want you to do, say it again with me. 1/16, 1/8, 1/4, 1/2. Say it again, please. Your turn. Excellent, I know you guys were saying it. What I want you to do is get your piece of paper, and I'm actually gonna have you take it, and I'm going to have you fold it in half. So do this with me. Okay, once you've folded it in half, I want you to take the half, and I want you to fold it in quarters.
If you need to stop the video or slow it down, that's fine. Go ahead and stop it and pause it. I'm gonna work kind of fast.
Once you have it folded in quarters, then I'm gonna have you take it, and I'm gonna have you fold it into eighths.
So I'm gonna fold my quarter in half, so I now have eighths. I'm gonna make my folds really tight. See how I did that?
And then last but not least, I'm gonna have you fold it one more time. This part's kind of hard, do the best you can. I'm gonna take it, and I'm gonna fold it, and I've folded my eighths in half, so I now have 16ths. If you're confused at this point, don't worry about it. Just fold your paper for me. Okay. Now, if you unfold it, it should fold into 16 parts. Here's what I want you to do. Start out with your half. Okay? And now I want you to get a pencil. Take your half, and I want you to draw, starting about 3/4 of the way up, right there. I don't want you to label it. There's that lovely helicopter. Just draw one line in the middle like that. Once you've drawn in the middle like that, I then want you to go back and I want you to find your quarters. So there's a quarter, and I'm going to draw another line. This one's not going to be quite as tall as that one. And I'm going to find my other quarter, which is, if I go right here, with it being, it's right there. Half. It's right here. Okay, see how I did that? So I have my half, I have my quarters, right? Then I want you to do your eighths, which is going to be right between your quarters. So that's an eighth, and then that's an eighth. Oops, sorry, I made a mistake. That's not an eighth. That's an eighth. And then between here, that's an eighth. That's an eighth. I don't have much of an eraser. Oh well. Okay. And then finally, your last lines, those are all going to be 16ths. So we're going to make those smaller. So go ahead and do this. Just like that. So when you're done, your paper should look like this. What we've done is we've drawn a big inch. So if you look right here, we're going to ignore those little lines. Those little lines are 30 seconds. But if you look between the 1 and the 2, you're going to see there's 15 lines. And that should look just like the 15 lines that we drew here. What I want to do now is show you guys the trick I was talking about. So the first thing I want you to do this with me, please. You're going to take the little mark, the first 16th, and I just simply want you to write 1/16, or don't even write 1/16, just write 16, and I want you to put a line over it. And then you can go to the next one, 16, put a line over it. And you can do this on all your 16ths. See how I did that to all my 16ths? Now, we know this first 16th is 1/16, so I'm just going to write 1 on it. Now I want to teach you guys the trick. All you do is take the numerator and just simply... Sorry, excuse me. A little bit of a sneeze here. I probably inhaled some sawdust. Let me try that again. So all I'm going to do is take the numerator, in this case 1, and I'm just going to simply... Did you guys catch that? Let me slow down. All I'm going to do is take the numerator and add 2. Get it? That was my cheesy joke. Okay, so I'm going to take 1 and I'm just going to add 2 to 1. What's 1 plus 2? Very good. Those of you that said 5 are wrong. Okay, 1 plus 2 is 3. So the next 16th is 3/16. 3 plus 2, 5. The next 16th is 5/16. 5 plus 2, 7. I want you guys to do this with me. 7 plus 2, 9. 9 plus 2, 11. 11 plus 2, 13. 13 plus 2 is 15. So I've just labeled all my 16ths. 1/16, 3/16, 5/16, 7/16, 9/16, 11/16, 13/16, 15/16. All you're doing is starting with the first and adding 2. In fact, it's even easier than that. Do you guys see the pattern? All I'm doing is taking the first 16th right here, and I'm just counting by odd numbers. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15. You get it? Okay, so now let's do the eighths. It's the same thing. 1/8. I'm going to skip over the quarter. I'm going to do the next eighth. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3/8. What's the next one going to be? Count by odds. 1, 3, 5/8. What's the next one going to be? 7/8. You're just counting by odd numbers across the top. We've got our quarters. 1/4, 3/4, and of course you've got the big daddy line in the middle, 1/2. And that's how you label the parts of an inch. So here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to try this. Okay, you can take the piece of paper that you just folded if you want. You can flip it over to the other side. I have a princess and a rainbow on my side, but you could do it again and you could practice it. I want you to practice over and over again until you have it. Okay, you could redraw it on this side right here, cross it out. And you guys should be able to write down the parts of an inch. You should be able to write down the parts of an inch, hopefully in about a minute. That's what I'd like for you to shoot for. When you write it down, first write down all the 16ths, then do the eighths, then the quarter, and the half. And remember, all you have to do is memorize these 4 fractions: 1/16, 1/8, 1/4, and 1/2. If you can memorize those 4 fractions, the rest is easy. It's really important that you can do this, though, because we'll be using the tape measure in the shop. And you'll need to measure out 6, say, and 3/8. You need to be able to find 6 and 3/8. So the first thing I need to find is what? 6. And then I need to be able to find 3/8. Now I know 3/8 is right there because I do this all the time. But you guys are going to need to practice this a little bit. All right, so if you need to watch the video again, please watch it again. Get a piece of paper, fold it up. I want you to practice. You should have a piece of paper. You should be able to draw the lines, and then you should be able to mark out the lines. If you can do that today, you're pretty much set. All right, thanks for watching this.